Did you pretend to be a superhero when you were a kid? Whether you wore a cape or imagined yourself in durable spandex suits, I'm guessing the hero you played was competent, effective, and, well, super. In today's episode, we are going to pick up rules hack number 5 for Goblin Quest the RPG, neither super nor heroic. Superheroes in this game are real. Unfortunately, the bad news is you are not one of them. Welcome to Claim to Game, the podcast helping busy people master tabletop role-playing games one game at a time. I'm Clint.scheirer. I've been an educator for over 12 years and have helped gamers of all levels quickly grasp tabletop RPGs so they can enjoy playing them to the fullest. Stay tuned so you can make your claim to game. Hello and welcome back to episode 21, season 1 of Claim to Game, a predominantly educational fun podcast in which I'm daring to coin the word funjucational. It's like when you open up your lunchbox on the first day of school and it's packed to the brim with s'mores, Skittles, and your favorite color jelly beans. The game for this season is Goblin Quest the RPG, brought to you by game designer Grant Howitt, whose works include, but are not limited to, Honey Heist, Die the RPG, Spire, Unbound, One Last Job, Heart, Eat the Reich, and right now, at the time of this episode release, the new tabletop RPG, Hollows, fully funded on BackerKit. Our running definition of a rules hack for Goblin Quest is a series of tweaks and twists to the main game, which allow you to use it to tell different stories. The fifth of these hacks to appear in the Goblin Quest RPG book on page 98, earned through the Kickstarter stretch goals in 2014, is neither super nor heroic. As a child, I was obsessed with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Though they technically didn't have any superpowers, much like DC Comics' Batman, their ability to fight crime for a city that didn't always want their help was captivating to me. These green vigilantes taking on the Foot Clan, living in a secret hideout down in the sewers of New York eating pizza. I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle. Now, what is it about superheroes that make me, in my heart, want to be a superhero? A few reasons may be helping those in need, bringing justice to evil, and possibly getting to have superpowers any mere mortal may just dream of. Superheroes are in many ways godlike, or in the case of Thor, an actual god. Whether it be flying, shooting lasers out of your eyes, or slicing people up with adamantium claws that unsheath from your hands, superpowers are fascinating and leave no end to the infinite opportunities in tabletop role-playing games. Getting to roleplay my favorite superhero archetype, for me, satisfies my inner child. Well, with neither super nor heroic, I almost get to satisfy my inner child. You get to play as an almost hero. The book puts it like this. Maybe you have superpowers, but you always struggled with that hero bit, and you never could do the right thing in time to save anyone. Maybe your heart is in the right place, but you lack powers and often are useless in more situations than not. Maybe you have no powers, maybe you have no heart, and you just tick the wrong box on the application. You get the idea. When playing this game, your character is put on the spot of being the idyllic, competent, effective, successful superhero, but does not live up to that expectation. The premise of this hack is, though you are not a superhero, you're not superhero material, you are the only available option to the government who needs you. The real heroes are either dead or too busy to assist, so this is your big chance to prove yourself a true hero or truly prove that you are no hero at all. Each player during character creation is going to create 3 superheroes that are a part of the same team. Each player's hero begins with just 3 injury boxes. You'll have the opportunity later in character creation to receive more than 3 injury boxes. We'll get to that in a moment. To flesh out your team, you'll need to roll 1d6 for a result on the 3 tables appearing on page 99. Alternatively, you can come up with your own concepts. I decided to roll on each table. So for table number 1, that is the table for the power source of the team's superpowers. I rolled a 2 that said that my superheroes got their powers from some sort of super science. In table number 2, it's the power focus. What is the superpower exactly? I rolled another 2, which put my team's superpower in the might, strength, and combat category. And then table number 3 is the theme of the team. And my same cursed dice rolled another 2. Maybe that's my superpower, which said that my team is a part of the same military unit. I'm going to use these concepts as my launching point for my gameplay. The super science behind my character's powers are red mushrooms with white spots. The focus of might and strength is that when these mushrooms are eaten, my heroes' bodies get physically larger, or they got physically larger. This was a one-time occurrence, kind of like getting bitten by a radioactive spider. And they were also given the power to jump extremely high into the air onto their enemies. And finally, being a part of the same military unit, I'm going to alter this slightly and go with my, if you haven't guessed it yet, Super Mario Brothers theme. My team is the Super Mario Bros. SEALs, like the Navy SEALs, but not like the animal, Arf, arf. Disclaimer, Grant Howitt has a sidebar on page 99 suggesting not to get too silly too fast. He recommends going on with normal, mundane concepts that are not too wacky or out of place. And then, just like in a comic book, you evolve through storytelling and gameplay to the fanciful, amazing, and funny. I want to apologize to Grant right now. I did not follow his advice. Luckily, I'm not playing in an actual game, so my consequences are minimal. Next up in character creation is to determine why your team of heroes haven't been hired yet. What's going to trigger the setbacks you'll experience during the game as you attempt to be a hero? You're going to roll 1d6 and compare it with the I wasn't hired until now because table. I rolled and got a 6, which says I am dangerously incompetent. Mechanically, this means that as I play the game and take action, I will resolve the results of all of my dice rolls against the dangerously incompetent roll table on page 100. If any of my dice roll a 1 or a 6, that's a 1 or a 6, this will result in an injury to my character as well as a setback, which we'll discuss momentarily. I decided narratively that my team is dangerously incompetent because the very same red mushrooms with the white dots that make their bodies physically larger and give them their superpowers and mad hops, they are also psychedelic shrooms, man. And this team is constantly on the most insane mushroom trip this side of the Mississippi River. And the final step is technically optional, but if you choose to participate, you can gain your character's extra injury boxes to assist them when they are likely to fumble through their tasks. And to do this, you go ahead and you draw your hero. You get an extra injury box simply by drawing your hero. You can also get an additional box for the character if you color them in 4 different colors. And I've gone ahead and I've done this, and I'm going to pin my character's image to our Discord server on the Goblin Quest text channel. That is GQ Podcast Resources. And for reference, I have named my superheroes Barrio, Muigi, and Goshi. Practical, ingenious, and in no way plagiarous. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and change their name to the Super Barrio Brothers SEALs. Eat your heart out, Shigeru Miyamoto. Quick pause on the episode. Have you felt that life is too crazy busy, that the tabletop role-playing games you've always wanted to learn and play are passing you by? The Claim to Game podcast has one mission: helping busy people master tabletop role-playing games one game at a time. If you are enjoying what you are hearing, please share the Claim to Game podcast with others. Share it with at least one other person who you know listens to podcasts and who could benefit from what this show's talking about. This helps grow the show, spreads the message, and helps others learn new tabletop role-playing games. Remember to share the show once you finish listening today. Thanks. And now back to the episode. To begin the game, just like the Goblin Quest core rules, when you choose to act, you will roll dice. And in this case, you get 2 dice to roll. Then you interpret the results of each dice against the table on page 100. If you use your superpower during your action, you can roll 4 dice at the same time. And as before, you will interpret the result of each dice against the table on page 100. Every dice counts individually. If your characters don't have superpowers per se, like Batman doesn't have a superpower, but he has a lot of gadgets and the ability to kick some ass, then you roll whenever the characters on your superhero's team do their thing, whatever that is. For the Super Mario Brothers, their thing is doing a super jump to get super high. More ways than one, am I right? Or to get really high to pounce down on the skulls of their enemies. Don't forget, they will be rolling against the dangerously incompetent column on the table, page 100, because they got the shrooms, man. Once per scene, you can team up with another member of your team to get a reroll of your dice. And you just do this by narratively explaining how the team up helped you divert disaster. Of course, you might roll just as poorly the second time, but hey, it's worth a shot. And if you have no other heroes left in action on your team except for your current hero, then you're allowed to either do a flashback when one of your teammates was still in the action and taught you, your current hero, something useful to overcome the sitch, or another option would be to team up with another player's superhero character that is still in action. That works too. All right, I promised I would talk about setbacks, and here we are. Promise kept. Setbacks will determine the stability of each situation. Every important scene has something that's going to go wrong unless you fix it fast. The GM will decide what that something wrong is. The setbacks you incur through your dice rolls will make it worse. On the competency table on page 100, if your team is dangerous, you incur a setback if you roll a 1. If your team is simply incompetent, you incur a setback if you roll a 6. And if your team is dangerously incompetent, like the Super Mario Bros. Seals, then you incur a setback if you roll a 1 or a 6. When a character gets a setback, the player should describe how they made things worse in an attempt to solve the problem, and subtract 1 from the scene's stability for each dice rolled that incurs a setback. The lower the stability rating the scene has, the more likely something will go wrong. A stability level of 1 means that the scene is seconds away from disaster. It's a cluster. A stability level of 8 means things are reasonably calmer. And the GM will set up all the scenes and will determine each scene's difficulty rating based on the table on page 102, as well as the stability level of the scene based on the table on page 103. We will cover the DR in a moment, but let's meander through the scene's stability table on page 103. The table has 3 sections. The first level of stability on the table is 2, which means really risky. Shit will likely hit the fan, both literally and proverbally. 4 is the next level, and that means kinda risky. Something could go wrong, but maybe it won't. And the final level is 8. It is stable. Kinda safe, maybe. You can choose stability numbers between 1 through 8, but the 2, 4, 8 benchmarks are guides for the GM as they assign the appropriate level of stability to the scenes they create before the game begins. For each scene, the GM will also decide what is unstable narratively to match the stability level that they set for the scene. An example may be that the Super Mario Bros. Seals are at the farmer's market in a swanky Brooklyn, New York neighborhood. An argument breaks out among one of the art vendors whose potential customer has become aggressive and is shouting that the vendor is unfair and crooked. I would set this maybe at a 6. Not calm, the world's not ending, and there's no violence that's occurred. Yet. Now, a fun twist to the stability level is that the GM doesn't have to tell the players what the stability level is for the scene. I assume the aggressive customer above was no more than a jaded art connoisseur. But let's backpedal. And let's say that the individual is actually Krebtor, an up-and-coming common criminal who happens to have the super ability of sonic sound. The stability could escalate quickly within the scene. In this case, maybe the 6 would instead be a 4, which according to the table is kinda risky, the standard fit for most scenes during this hack. Not allowing the players to know right away gives way to the element of discovery as the story plays out. So what happens if a scene's stability level reaches 0 through the sheer bad fortune of the players rolling to get enough setbacks during their dice rolls. The first thing that should happen is the GM should describe in the story what bad thing is about to occur. Second, if you cleared the scene by hitting 0 on the stability level at the same time as getting the appropriate number of victories needed to move on in the scene to the next scene, you still succeed, but not in the way that you wanted. And if appropriate on a failed scene, each active team member should roll 1d6 and half that number rounded up. All active characters being played by players in the scene receive that number of injuries and check off those number of boxes on their character sheet. In regards to injury and death, Grant Howitt made a very good point. Superheroes rarely die. Instead, when you check off all their injury boxes, think of another appropriate way to take them out of action. Some examples could be that they're kidnapped, they're trapped, they're knocked out, they're lost, etc. Whatever you choose, that character is out of the game once all those injury boxes are checked off. Now, there is a dedicated section for GM tips, and for neither super nor heroic, it is revealed, and I'm not sure why I never figured this out, probably because math is not my main jam, but it's revealed that on page 102, 103, that typically Goblin Quest allots 9 victories per player before the game finishes. So let that be your guide as to how many victories you should allot between scenes. You can go higher than 9 per player for a longer game, or lower than 9 per player for a shorter game. If the players seem to be getting too bored and they are achieving success too easily, you can lay on more victories that are needed to clear that scene or the following scene. If the players seem to be getting too discouraged and everything's taking too long, you can lower the number of victories needed for the scene to help them move along. And if you're a purist feeling like this feels too much like breaking the rules, keep your predetermined victories as is and let them deal with it. It's up to you. The difficulty rating table on page 102 gives a great description of the DR ranges and how long or in-depth each scene will be based on the number of victories that are needed to pass the scene. If your players need 1 to 3 victories to pass a scene, it's a short scene. Unimportant tasks or breaks in the pace would be used with a 1 through 3. 4 through 6 is a meaty scene, and most scenes will fall in here to help develop main events and plots. And lastly, and this will be used sparingly, 8 to 9 is epic. It's never necessary to make an epic scene in any game, but this could be awesome for a final showdown feel and make it very difficult for them to overcome the big bad evil guy. I'm not sure why the table left out the number 7, but I'm guessing that would also be in the epic level, pushing the difficulty. Now, using the previous example of the normal aggressive customer, that might be a 1 through 3. Short scene, and it's on its way to bigger problems. However, if the aggressive customer is actually the up-and-coming criminal, Krebtor, with supersonic sound, then we're probably looking at a scene that's more of a 4 to a 6. Grant talks about an awesome concept on page 103, and I love this concept. It's about falling forward. When players fail, the story doesn't have to stop. It can just change directions. Think of it like a branch on a tree. You were moving towards one branch that was branching off of your main flow, and then you just went in a different direction. And this is all based on the dice flow and the choices of the characters. Players will fail in neither super nor heroic, and it's encouraged to make true failure impossible. The game goes on, and instead of failure blocking success, think of the story as the branch. Failing the desired outcome instead results in an alternative reality, which allows the narrative circle to get completed, regardless of whether it's what they were hoping to do. An example for my heroes may be that the influential, charismatic political figure, Governor Peach, was kidnapped, ransomed by the mafia crime boss, Mr. Bowser. What happens if the infiltration of the crime boss's lair results in the governor being taken deep underground without any hope of being recovered? What do the heroes do next? Now, this doesn't mean to keep playing the game until Peach is recovered. No, that reality might be lost. But keep playing until the scenes are played through to an ending that is complete. Matt Forbeck is a writer and game designer who's worked on the Marvel Superheroes Multiverse role-playing game. He also happened to send in adventure ideas to Grant to be added to this book. And one of my favorite storylines with Marvel superheroes is the Marvel Civil War. Here's the premise. The government wants to install a system of accountability since the superheroes cause so much collateral damage when fighting the bad guys. Captain America is against this idea, and he believes superheroes should be free to defend humanity without government interference. Iron Man, Tony Stark, on the other hand, he agrees with the system of accountability, and this splits the Marvel superheroes in half. And some of the heroes are supporting the Captain, and others are supporting Iron Man. I was so giddy back in 2012 when I got to live out this storyline playing the Xbox 360 game Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. My favorite adventure idea, sent in by Matt here, is a hat tip to this Marvel storyline with the following caveat. Here it is. Secret Civil War. The biggest heroes in the world have disappeared, and you are convinced it is so that they can finally duke it out over which team is the best. Your invitation must have gotten trapped in your spam filter, but you are determined to join in, just as soon as you can figure out where everybody is. This scenario sounds like a party, and even though your characters are not invited to the party, it's time to crash that party with the Secret Civil War. All right, final thoughts. This hack is a great opportunity to turn the superhero trope on its head. So get ready to fumble, get ready to bumble, and get ready to be neither super nor heroic. Join us next time as we continue our quest claiming Goblin Quest. With 5 rules hacks down, we've got 2 more hacks to go, and our next one is Space Interns. It pays homage to the reality that most of the security officers wearing red shirts in Star Trek, beaming down to the planet's surface with the main characters, they don't usually beam back up to the ship by the end of the episode. And it is not because they decided to start a new, hope-filled life on a strange new planet. No. It's because they always die. Have you been listening to the first season of the CTG and do not yet have your very own copy of Goblin Quest the RPG? Picture yourself pretending to be gross, grotty little buggers on your next game night with your closest friends. Laughs, goofs, and goblins. Don't wait. Click on the link in the show notes. You don't like goblins? Enjoy 7 different Goblin Quest setting hacks in the back of the core rulebook. It's almost like getting 8 games for the price of 1. Enjoy your copy of Goblin Quest the RPG today. And until the next time we make our claim to game, 1 game at a time.